Okay. Good evening. And welcome to everyone who's joining us on the internet. We'll go right into the book. I am the manifestation of the Holy Spirit. And when you see me, it will be because you have invited Him. I am the manifestation of the Holy Spirit. That doesn't mean that I'm a product of the Holy Spirit. A tool that is being used for your benefit. We can turn it around the other way. When you see me, it will be because you have invited in the Holy Spirit. If you haven't happened to ask to be in touch with the Holy Spirit, but you have reached out to me. In other words, when you have decided to break your isolation and draw upon a source beyond your best thinking, best reasoning, best judgments, and I respond, it means that you have also connected with the Holy Spirit, that which is nothing more than your right mind. I am the manifestation of the Holy Spirit, and when you see me, it will be because you have invited Him, for He will send you His witnesses, if you will but look upon them. If you seek the Holy Spirit, you get me. It is my task, it is my function to guide you home when you have decided to abandon the orphanage. Remember, always, that you see what you seek, for what you seek you will find. And I will add, and you do find. It's the way it works, as we discussed last week. The ego finds what it seeks, or for clarity, the orphan mentality finds what it seeks, and only that. It does not find love, for that is not what it is seeking. Well, you say, even if I am ignorant, I still do seek love. I look for love everywhere. But the simple fact is that the orphan mentality is an unjoined, independent, unconnected mentality or thing, imagination actually. It doesn't seek for joining because its premise, as we've been discussing all along, is that its task is to make something out of itself on its own. Its success can only be the result of independently validating itself and proving itself to be real, even though it has no source. Now, love, on the other hand, is what? Love is the willingness to let in. Love is the willingness to be undefended, unguarded. Love is the willingness to not be independent, to not be a sole authority. It's a willingness to be joined. You know, the one thing that the orphan mentality, or the ego, whichever you want to call it, is outstanding at, is being independent. Everything it does for the purpose of confirming its independence, and that its independence can be accomplished successfully. It avoids being in a state of need. In other words, it avoids being dependent. And as we've discussed before, it does it with pride. It is proud not to have to lean on anyone. It is proud to promote the ethic of independent success. It takes what the Course says and points out to its brother or its sister. And of course, those words are very loosely used by an orphan because, of course, an orphan can't really have an actual brother or sister. But it's a friendly choice of words to use to cover up the solitariness of being an orphan, to make it sound like there's family. It takes pride in pointing out to a brother or a sister that that brother or sister is creating his or her own circumstances, and that brother or sister can make a different decision, but it's up to that other brother. And there's a willingness to stand and observe the brother and report back to the brother how well or poorly he or she might be doing. But you see, there's never a joining with that brother or sister. Because the minute joining occurs, independence becomes, or shall I say, the lines, the boundaries of independence become fuzzy. And that's very threatening. That's very threatening to the orphan mentality. If the boundaries of independent selfhood become fuzzy, then the potential for successfully demonstrating independence and validity becomes fuzzy. And the purpose of being, from the orphan's standpoint, becomes unclear, unfocused, and therefore dangerous to its health. So the orphan mentality is never looking for love because it disallows for joining, for being present with and for a brother. The ego finds what it seeks, and only that. It does not find love, for that is not what it is seeking. Yet seeking and finding are the same, and if you seek for two goals, you will find them, but you will recognize neither. You will not find yourself at one with them. Recognition always means the experience of finding yourself in what you're recognizing. Finding unity where difference had been experienced. Yet seeking and finding are the same, and if you seek for two goals, you will find them, but you will recognize neither. For you will think they are the same because you want them both. The mind always strives for integration, and if it is split and wants to keep the split, it will believe it has one goal by making it one. As an orphan, as a solitary, alone authorizer, entity, or whatever you want to call it, you can want something more than what you're experiencing. The dissonance and the discomfort of orphanhood drives the orphan to want more. And that orphan can arrive at a point where it realizes that maybe there's another option besides its own struggle to establish its good for itself. It hears others talk about a God. It even hears others talk about A Course in Miracles. And so it says, I'll look into that. Maybe there's some way I can use that too. But it's always use that in addition to what I'm already employing. To use it to make the attempt to be successfully and validly independent easier. And so it says, I'll look into this. And it reads the ideas. It considers the ideas. And then incorporates it into the state of orphanhood. And now, where it had talked in the past about brothers and sisters, as I said, using the terms loosely because there cannot be any such thing between orphans, it now talks about fellow Christs, but still sees his fellow Christs, just using new words for brothers and sisters, but still sees his fellow Christs as quite independent, capable of being more successful independent agents because of who they really are, Christs. And so, this one can get on an elevator or be in an audience with many other people and be there all alone, along with all of the other Christs who are there all alone, creating their experiences all alone, but together. And so there is an artificial sense of family which never bears fruit because no one ever really joins with any other one in the audience or on the elevator. No one ever really lets the other in. Sometimes one will appear to let another in, but ultimately it will only be so that he can pontificate to that brother, to help set him straight in his independent task of validating himself, because really he's the Christ. Still, there is no union. Still, there is no communion. Still, there is no joining of any sort. And so, this orphan, who seems to have two goals, one, to authorize everything for himself, and the other to let in some divine wisdom from apparently outside himself. This represents a split mind, a split purpose, a split want. But in the orphan's mind, in your mind, you can fool yourself into believing that it is one desire, that it is one want, and that it represents the integrity, the integratedness of you. Because of this, you never see that the results you get from your attempting to authorize things on your own, and the things that you get when you try to incorporate letting in something bigger than you, you don't see that those two things are actually different. And you feel that you are engaging in this split activity from your integrity, from your singularity. The mind always strives for integration, and if it is split and wants to keep the split, it will believe it has one goal by making it one. We said before that what you project is up to you, but it is not up to you whether to project, for projection is a law of mind. Perception is projection, and you look in before you look out. As you look in, you choose the guide for seeing. See, that's how actually independent the orphan is. No matter which guide it chooses, it always seeks for a guide. As you look in, you choose the guide for seeing, and then you look out and behold his witnesses. You look out and you see the messengers returning to you that you sent out to gather information, to tell you how you are, to tell you how your world is, so that you might better be prepared to defend yourself against it or utilize it to your advantage and to the disadvantage of everyone else, while at the same time attempting to fool the others into believing that they haven't been screwed. As you look in, you choose the guide for seeing, and then you look out and behold his witnesses. This is why you find what you seek. What you want in yourself, you will make manifest by projection. That's a fact. That's a law. What you want in yourself, you will make manifest by projection. And you will accept it from the world because you put it there by wanting it. Whether you like to acknowledge it or not, you have rules of conduct by which or according to which you behave, and according to which you interpret the world you're looking at. And whatever the rules are that you hold yourself to, in the process of attempting to turn yourself into a valid, independent authority, you will have that experience. those rules will govern what you see, whether what you're seeing is what is really there or not. You do not realize to what degree you are bound by your thoughts, your reasoning, and your justifications. You may not even think you're bound. But I'm here to tell you that you are experiencing unjustifiable discomfort, unjustifiable suffering. And there's a way out from it. When you think you are projecting what you do not want, it is still because you do want it. Now, it's not necessary to get into heavy psychology here. You say, I do not want to suffer. And yet you drive down the road, and somebody screams past you at high speed, driving dangerously, and you look around for the cop that's going to correct the situation, and there is none there. Injustice, injustice flashes in your mind. Red letters. Injustice, injustice. A little further on the road, you happen to go 5 miles over the speed limit and whoa! Red lights flashing behind you. Again, injustice, injustice. How come he can get away with it and I can't? You see, you don't really want to be able to get away with it. You don't really want to break the law. You don't really want to drive in a way that's unsafe or hazardous for others on the road. It's not really in your nature. But you give yourself misery because you are choosing to look at your world through the lenses of conflict, through the lenses of polarity, opposition, which calls for correction. You're seeing through the lens of righteousness, ready to see injustice, injustice, injustice before the event occurs that seems to validate the cry for justice, because injustice has just occurred. And so you have projected injustice into your world. You've sent out the messenger, and the messenger has come back to you, confirming to you your righteous state, of which you are quite proud. And so you create for yourself suffering when you say, I don't want to suffer. When you think you are projecting what you do not want, it is still because you do want it. Many times you are suffering from something occurring in your world that your clear reasoning does not allow you to engage in. I'm not just talking about breaking the law. Sometimes you suffer because other people are experiencing more freedom and joy than you are. And it's because they don't hold themselves to the same principles you hold yourself. Ooh, reeks of righteousness again. You see, someone else is doing something that your mindset does not give you permission to do. And some of the things that your mindset does not give you permission to do constitute illegitimate bondage. But you are bound to stay true to your rules, because staying true to your rules is the way you get to the point of successfully validating yourself as an independent authorizer. And so you create for yourself experiences that you don't want, but you really do want them, because if you didn't experience the bondage, you would have to invalidate some of your pet rules. You would have to invalidate some of the mindset that you are using, and you don't want to do that. You want to continue to see things the way you see them, even if they bring you experiences of conflict. And so you have experiences of conflict because you want them. Or below that is the fact, because you don't want to release what brings them to you. Because what brings them to you is part of the infrastructure of the successful independent authorizer that you are striving to become. Again, when you think you are projecting what you do not want, it is still because you do want it. This leads directly to dissociation, for it represents the acceptance of two goals, each perceived in a different place, separated from each other because you made them different. The mind then sees a divided world outside itself, but not within. You see, you say, my mind is perfectly aligned. My mind is perfectly consistent. My mind is singular. And I know I have integrity. And I value myself. I love myself. But it's a pretty lousy world out there. The mind then sees a divided world outside itself, but not within. This gives it what? An illusion of integrity, and enables it to believe that it is pursuing one goal. Singular, in other words. As long as you perceive the world as split, you are not healed. For to be healed is to pursue one goal because you have accepted only one and want but one. Now, the important thing to understand is that as an orphan, engaged in the orphan mentality, you really don't know the difference between what is true and what is not. You don't know the difference between creation or reality as it really is and confronts you, and the world you have made up by applying different definitions to creation than what it really is.